All right. So recently, World First 17 Rookery was timed. It was timed, and the team that initially timed this was under by around 30 seconds. And so that had me thinking, I was like, I wonder what they did. And then I noticed pretty quickly that they had a couple of route deviations that were fairly atypical for most other teams whenever they're looking to do Rookery. Most of the time, whenever you're looking to do Rookery, it's fairly standard. It looks something kind of like you see here, where pull 1 doesn't involve the Void Rider. You're doing most of the stuff like in pull 7, pull 8, pull 9 ends up being your Bloodlust. It's a very standard route, and then the end of the dungeon is normally something that looks like this. However, I noticed at a glance that on Raider.io they were doing something completely different, and I went through and I found on Billy that they had actually made a couple of route deviations with the Void Rider here. But if you notice as well, they're actually skipping a lot of this stuff at the end, which had me thinking like, what's kind of going on? And we can actually take some time to kind of look at the world first 17 Rookery and kind of talk through what this team was actually doing inside of this dungeon. So right off the bat, kind of like I was talking about here, this Void Rider is actually getting gathered. It's not something that's actually particularly dangerous, although the tank damage on this pull is not a small amount. The tank is actually going to end up getting beat up by these small mobs here. They actually melee your tank for a lot. But this is a Bloodlust pull, which had a lot of groups thinking, maybe we're supposed to go a little bit bigger on the first pull of this dungeon because we're so incentivized to lust it. Now, some people have actually just been lusting like the second pull of the dungeon, where you're already in that first boss area. Instead, you go and lust a second pull of the dungeon. That's not as efficient. Instead, what they actually do is grab this Void Rider here, and then they cleave that down with the mini boss, and then they start moving on to the second area. And whenever they move on to the second area, the first pull in here is pretty standard. It's this pull on the right. And what they're going to do next is they're going to start pulling around their offensive CDs in a way that I actually didn't look to expect. So here they're pressing the Unholy Assault, they're pressing the Dark Transformation, they're also combusting this pack to try to get it killed off. This is fairly standard. You're going to be sending all of your buttons on this pull. Now, what they have here is they have a lot less offensive CDs. And you noticed it initially whenever I had this pull marked up here, that pull 3 was triple pull, but one of the Thunders was CC'd off to the side. And I think that this is super smart. So what this pull has is it's still going to be 3 Thunders, which is very, very dangerous whenever you're calculating kicks. But now, and then you also have to factor in that the Druid has a Soothe. So whenever you see one of this Rook Tenders here, put the Lightning Surge on a mob. Let me move this out of the way. You see this Lightning Surge get put on a mob. The Soothe can kind of act as the interrupt. So what they're going to do here is they're going to go triple kick on the Thunder. Then they're going to go Solar Beam to lock the mobs out. Then after this, they're going to press a couple of CCs, allowing all of their kicks to come back up like you see on screen right here. And then they're going to press Silent Sigil immediately. So the CC in this instance is going to be Silent Sigil. And most of these Thunders are going to be close to killed off. They run triple kick again, and then they'll be pressing every single CC left available to them to be able to get the remainder of the pack killed off. And I think that this is a super smart way of pathing through this dungeon. Now, the second route deviation actually happens after the first boss here. So they're going to go through and they're going to kill the first boss. And this is where that second route deviation happens. More often than not, the route is what you see on screen here, where you actually skip this pack. You skip G13, you skip G14, you take the G15 patrol into G16. That's fairly normal. What you see is what they actually do is pull 7 right here, where it's all 3 of these packs combined. And you're thinking, oh, they're actually getting a lot more count and front loading it. But we already know that they've elected to skip some stuff in the back. So we're kind of figuring out how they're going to be looking to route around getting to the end of this dungeon with the trash that they need. So this pull that they're doing here is actually kind of dangerous, but what they're also doing is they're looking to line of sight some of the Arc Lightnings. They're looking to line of sight potentially some of the Crushers if they're going to be going out. They also make sure that they have 2 decurses for those Void Seeds that are from the casters that are in this pack as well. And honestly, it just doesn't look too bad. The rest of this, it makes a lot of sense here. We're going to go ahead and do... Oh, they actually do a skip. I probably should have talked about the skip. So they do this hallway pull. They're just doing 1 pack. This is the Double Crusher pull with the Void Diffuser. And then they do a skip. And how they do the skip is they pull these mobs into the corner here. And then the Venged Demon Hunter is going to Infernal Strike and meld off the pack. Not super uncommon. We actually see this a lot in a lot of dungeons like Workshop and whatnot. Now, here's our second lust of this dungeon, which is double Void Diffuser, double Crusher. I mean, that's the reason that you lust this pull. You've also see that they're kind of looking to potentially even use some of these pillars here to LOS the Arc Lightning or LOS the Crusher Leap if it's going to become a problem. You see their Moonkin is already getting in position to where he can potentially look to LOS that. Their Priest is playing Oracle Disc, so he has pretty sizable shield that he's going to be able to put onto the party. Now, his damage is a little bit lower because of it, but the increase in survivability from these things allows some of your DPS to not have to line of sight whenever they otherwise would be a little bit scared. Now, they make it through the second boss. No big deal. Not really much to talk about with the second boss here. And so we can finally see the culmination of what their route has allowed them to do. And so they're making it into this final crash pack before jumping down. And we already saw, whenever I pulled up the 3chess.io, what their route ended up looking like. And you can already kind of see on screen here what's about to happen. So the Priest is already running off to the side. And you see he's actually getting a good angle for this platform right here. This is the platform with the Ascendant mob that puts the heal absorb on everybody. Most people, whenever they jump down and they land like right here in the water. These people are actually aiming for this solid ground, and they're going to do things like slow fall, like flap. So the mage has levitate, or the priest has levitate, the mage has slow fall. The DK is going to be forced to get a grip from the priest, but everybody else can make it with flap as well on the druid. And so everybody's just going to jump down, levitate, slow fall. We actually parasol as the DK. Funnily enough, you can see him on screen right here. He can use this parasol, and if there's anything that you take away from this, you should go buy the parasol off the trading post. Like right now, if you don't already have one, you can go get them in the Vinthier zone back in Shadowlands if you don't have one, if you're watching this and it's no longer March. But if the trading post is still active for the month of March, you can actually just jump down and grab the parasol on the trading post. So everybody's made it to this platform. And you're like, oh my God, what the hell? And this is super smart because look at their offensive CDs. We have Unholy Assault in 21 seconds. We have Dark Transformation here. We have Bust coming up in 10 seconds. And we have Incarn soon. What they do is they decide that double Ascendant, double Crusher is the pull for them, which is very dangerous. But whenever you have all of your offensive cooldowns available, this is a pull that can pretty reasonably be done. We might end up sending Mass Dispel on the Heal Absorb as well, depending on how much danger we feel like we're in. But whenever we have all of our buttons, instead of putting it into this useless Void Stone, which has a lot of HP, and you see that it's not really an efficient mob. You see the efficiency count rating is 3.5. Even the civilians aren't that efficient, even though you can pull a million of them if you really wanted to. Realistically, the trash that is at the end of this dungeon isn't the most HP to count efficient. So instead, you would rather do these double Ascendant, double Crusher in a singular pull here. And you're actually really scared about the Ascendant casts because the Void Bolts that they cast, you're not going to have necessarily enough kicks for them. So you focus one down. And you see Diamond here was the marked target. That gets combusted down by the Mage. The Moonkin and the DK are both cleaving off of it. Then we're going to take the end area slow. A lot of people actually end up taking this end area a lot faster than they necessarily need to, but it puts their tank in a lot of pressure. So instead, this Chinese group is actually going to be looking to take this end area a little bit slower than most other groups elect to do, where they're doing this Void Stone solo, and then they're going to be doing the Ascendant of the Void Stone by himself. Most of the time, that pack is done with like the Ascendant mob, which is insane. Like, there's a reason that a lot of groups end up wiping that pull, just for point of reference. And so now we are doing a lot safer of pathing just in this dungeon. And now we made it to the final boss. And the final boss makes a lot of sense for how they're doing it. They're basically just spreading out like a normal group would. There's nothing really too much to talk about. They're trying to make sure that they drop their puddles in a correct place. They're going to be jamming Bloodlust basically the moment that the Void Rider comes down and debuffs the boss, putting it into the 100% damage amp. And so this is not something that's going to be super atypical from like a normal run, is what I would say about it. And so yeah, then they start burning, and they were able to down this dungeon, and they, like I said, around 30 seconds under the timer. But a very impressive run nonetheless from a group that kind of came out of nowhere. So this priest healer that I found, he's apparently one of the best disc priest healers and one of the best healers in all of China, is kind of the information that I've gathered from talking to some of my friends. He found his run on Bilibili, and they were able to time the world first Rookery 17. I think they're sitting at like almost 3,500 IO. Look, yeah, 3468 right now. So they're timing some incredible runs. If you like the style of video where we go through and VOD review some of the most impressive runs that are timed world first, make sure you leave a like, make sure you leave a comment, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.